Oh, heck yeah. This is an awesome campsite. I totally dig this. Wait a second. Oh man. It's cold out here. Jeez. I swear it wasn't this cold earlier. What's going on? Man. Oh shoot. I think my nipples just poked through. It's so cold. Yep. They sure did. Well, I think I got a way to fix that. Oh yeah, that is more like it. Woo. Well, welcome to another Overland Garage episode. And on today's episode, I'm going to talk to you guys about winter camping. I enjoy camping year round. If I don't camp, even in the wintertime, I get cabin fever really bad. So I've developed a way to comfortably camp in the wintertime, and throughout all the years of experimenting and finding out what works really well and how to stay safe, I'm going to share that knowledge with you guys today on this episode. So let's settle in, stay warm, enjoy ourselves, and let me share all of my knowledge that I have developed over the years with you guys.
What is the one that does it with the best quality?
All right, you and your buddies, or maybe even just you want to go out and you want to do some winter camping, but you want to go prepared. You want to make sure that you're not going to get caught up and then you're going to find yourself in a really bad situation. You're very cold, you don't have any food, you don't have any water, you don't have enough water. So before you even think about leaving the house, there's a few things that you want to make sure that you've got. And I will start off with layers, clothing. So you want to make sure that you've got good hat, good pair of gloves, and you want to layer up, because it's not necessarily when you're driving in the vehicle, you've got the heater that's going to keep you nice and toasty and warm, so you're going to think, oh well, regular hoodie, t-shirt, no problem, I'm going to stay nice and warm. It's when you're going to get out of the vehicle to either help somebody get unstuck or to get yourself unstuck if you get like caught up in the snow, or let's say you pull up to an area and you want to do some hiking around, like where I'm at, whoo, I spent hours here hiking around. You want to make sure you've got the proper layering. So usually what I like to do is I wear a nice insulated windbreaker style jacket. Now this is going to be nice because it's going to cut that cold wind coming in, and if the wind can go right through you, you're going to be cold to the bone forever. You're going to have a really hard time warming up. Now if my body starts to warm up and I'm hiking around and whatnot, then I've got myself a nice cotton heavy hoodie sweatshirt, and between these two I usually stay really warm. Even in minus 15 to 20, I've worn this exact setup right here. I've actually stayed quite warm. The next thing is you want to wear some good pants that are either insulated or a nice heavy set of like sweatpants, because cotton is going to keep you warm even when it gets wet. And blue jeans are okay, but I find that they don't really keep my legs warm that well. So I don't know, it depends on the situation. Like right now today there's no snow around, but it is cold. We're down to freezing temperatures and my legs are actually fairly warm. But if it was a little bit colder, or if I was out in the snow, then I would have some type of insulated pants or a set of sweatpants to just do my activities in. Another thing is your feet. It's I've seen a lot of situations where people come out and they're wearing tennis shoes, and your feet is one of the most important things, because if your feet start to get extremely cold, you can't walk. It's going to be painful to walk and perform. Your feet are going to start to get really achy and it's going to be hard to even stand. So it's really, really important to make sure that you've got a good pair of boots that you go out. When I go out adventuring in the snow, I've got a set of these. They're really nice, insulated. I can pull this liner out to dry it out if need be. This is a nice, good, heavy-duty winter boot, and I love it. These things, they keep my feet nice and toasty when I'm out playing around in the snow. Now, what I'm currently wearing is just a set of regular work boots, and for the situation where I'm in, it's perfect. They're warmer than tennis shoes, and they're not going to get soaked from the snow. So it's perfect. So having the proper clothing is really key. Another thing is, I've actually had a situation where I went out adventuring and I did not pack enough dry clothes, and I ended up getting in a really bad situation to where I got so cold that luckily my truck had a really good heater, but I was so soaking wet from being out in the snow and everything, I couldn't get out of my vehicle anymore. Because if I did get out of my vehicle, my pants and my shirt and everything, just from working in the snow, it would start to freeze on me, and it was horrible. So my rule of thumb is, when I pack my clothing for going out in colder temperatures, if you're going for 2 days, pack for 4 days. Because in that way you've got yourself plenty of extra clothing to keep you warm in case you get wet. And even if you don't think you've gotten wet from, like the snow, or you fall into a creek or something, your body will actually sweat quite a bit, and all that sweat will go into your clothing, and it'll actually make your clothing feel colder, where putting on a fresh t-shirt, underwear, pants, socks, especially socks, fresh pair of socks, oh, it's heaven. You've got that nice dry clothing that's going to help keep you warm. So that's a little tip that I've learned about what to pack and get ready for clothing wise when I want to go out adventuring and camping in the wintertime. All right, so let's talk about what are good foods to bring while camping in cold weather and what to do with your water. So when I go to pack foods, I pack a lot of proteins, and that is meats, eggs, nuts, and the reason being is because your body burns a lot of calories in the cold to stay warm. So it's really important to make sure that you have good food to replace those carbs that your body is burning to stay warm. So I bring a lot of meats, like I like pepperoni, I like jerky sticks, I like jerky itself, summer sausage, I like eggs, I bring peanut butter for peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I do some veggies, but mainly more on the meats and proteins and eggs and stuff like that, and then also protein bars, energy bars. You can also bring some sugar, like some candy bars and stuff like that, but I normally do not bring the sugar unless it's kind of an emergency and I need a really big pick-me-up, because that sugar will give my body that extra boost to try to get me warm again. And believe it or not, it actually does work. I've found myself at one point in time where I was actually very cold. I was having a hard time getting myself warm, and I realized that I really didn't eat anything for that day, and I threw in I ate a chocolate bar real quick, and then all of a sudden I could feel my body starting to get warmer, because now my body had the energy to get me warm again. And then I ate a nice high protein meal, and I was great after that. So it really does make a difference. Now let's talk about water, because that's a really, really big challenge, because you're out in the cold. Your water's gonna freeze, right? So when I bring water, I bring water in 1 gallon jugs. You can get them at pretty much most of your gas stations. They sell the 1 gallon jugs, your grocery stores, or even at home, if you got milk cartons that you drink all the milk, wash them out really good, fill them up with water. So the reason why I use 1 gallon jugs is because they're a lot easier to manage to keep them from freezing. That is the key. We don't want our water to freeze, because you're going to need a lot of water for when you go out hiking, or when you start snow wheeling and you're helping your buddies and you're digging out, the snow from the vehicles, so that way you get unstuck. You're going to burn through a lot of water, and so it's really important to make sure that it's not frozen. Otherwise, that's not a good thing. So what I do for my water storage is I actually keep it inside the vehicle all the time. I know that's harder with a two-door single cab pickup truck, but find a way to store your water inside your vehicle, because if you're like me and the majority of the time you're actually driving around, looking at the scenery, enjoying yourself, enjoying the actual off-road, the adventuring, your vehicle heater is going to be running. So therefore your water is going to actually stay thawed out. Now, the key part is when you go to camp for the night, you don't want that water to freeze overnight, because then what are you going to have to make your coffee in the morning? A giant block of ice. I mean, sure, you could scoop up some snow and melt it on the stove, but then you're taking a risk of, well, what animal peed in that snow? So what I have learned over the years is actually, if you keep your water inside your vehicle is actually going to act as a insulator from the cold. Yes, your vehicle does get cold over a long period of time, but the ambient temperature inside the vehicle is going to be different than the outside of the vehicle, even just for the 6 to 8 hours that it may be parked and you're sleeping. And then also, for an extra reinsurance, what you can do is you can take your water And if you got like an extra jacket or an extra blanket, you can droop your blanket or your jacket over your water, and what that will do is that'll act as an extra insulator to prevent the cold air making your water even colder and freezing. And it does work. It actually works quite well. And you're in a situation where you're really paranoid about your water freezing, what you can actually do is get yourself a hand warmer, activate it, set it down right next to your water jug, and then droop your blanket and your jacket over that. And actually your jacket and your blanket is designed to reflect heat back onto the source of the heat. You know, your body heat is reflected back to you, and that's what keeps you warm. Well, that hand warmer will put off just enough heat to prevent your water jug from freezing. Man, talking about coffee, now it's got me wanting some coffee. It's all good. All right, let's see here. Ooh, yeah. All right, some nice huckleberry coffee coming right up. All right, so we talked about dressing properly. Hey now, shh. We talked about clothing, right? And then we talked about foods. So now let's talk about staying warm while you're at camp. You know, how do you keep your tent warm? How do you keep yourself warm when you're sleeping? How to keep yourself out of the wind when you're camping, because that is the key right there. If you can keep yourself out of that W, yeah, I shouldn't have said it. I should have said W. Around here, if you say the W word, it usually shows up. But being able to get out of the wind makes a huge difference on staying warm. So let's talk about that stuff. When I go out camping, I use a rooftop tent. They're pretty good for cold camping. The tents do a pretty good job at reflecting your body heat. They also do a good job at keeping the wind from just flowing right through. And they hold up to the snow if you get snow, you know, on the tent. They do a pretty good job, but that's not good enough. So to keep myself warm, I do a few things. So I have 4 pillows and 2 down comforters in my tent all year round. And those down comforters work pretty well in the colder weather. But again, not quite enough. So, a real simple trick to keeping yourself warm is these guys right here. Yep, good old-fashioned hand warmers. These things work really well. So what I will do is, and actually I can't even take credit to this one. This one goes to Mandy. Good for you, Mandy. So what you'll do is get yourself the large hand warmers. This thing is pretty good size. It's pretty good size. I want to say it's probably 3 inches wide by 5 inches long. Pretty good. And get them activated, get them nice and going, so that way they're feeling nice and toasty. And then before you go to bed, you're gonna take your hand warmers, and usually we do about 4 of these, and put them in your blankets. Yep, put them in your blankets. Put them right next to where you're gonna sleep. And then that way when you go to bed, these are like little ovens, and they actually put off quite a bit of heat to make a big difference when going to bed. Now it's not like you know, an oven and it's just gonna bake you out from underneath the sheets. No, it will take the bite of the cold off. That they will do. So these, great little hack. Another good thing that you can do is a low temperature sleeping bag. Now excuse me. Now I don't use sleeping bags and I don't like sleeping bags because I honestly feel like I can't get warm enough in those sleeping bags. I know there's some really good ones out there, but me personally, I just can't get all that warm with them. But if you do like your sleeping bags, one key thing about sleeping bags is you never want to cover your face when you're sleeping. And that means, you know, pull that sleeping bag up and over your head and you're nice inside and cocooned and, oh, this is so wonderful. My breath is making my sleeping bag warm, you know. You don't want to do that. And the reason being is when we sleep, got a tickle in my throat. Our breath puts off humidity. Our breath is warmer than the air. And what that does is it creates moisture. And actually, your sleeping bag, if you were to sleep with your head covered up by your sleeping bag, you can actually put several gallons of water into your sleeping bag in a one night's sleep. Isn't that amazing? And so also with your rooftop tent, it's actually really important that you actually keep a window open. You've got to vent your tent, otherwise you'll build up so much moisture content that your walls will actually start running. They'll actually start dripping on you. And all that moisture will get captured into your blankets and your sleeping bags. And what it'll do is it'll just keep your stuff wet. It's not warm enough to dry that moisture out of your sleeping stuff, and then the inside of your tent is going to be wet. So it's really, really important to vent that moisture. Now, okay, so another thing that you can do is electric sleeping blanket. Yeah, so if you have a portable battery unit, there's usually always a way to plug in 110, right? So actually you could get yourself a small battery unit and you can use that to power an electric blanket while you're sleeping. Now you want to make sure you get a powerful enough battery unit to last you all night, and then you can charge it in your vehicle when you fire it up the next morning. But electric sleeping blankets, actually, they work pretty daggone well. And last but not least, a diesel heater. Now, I've actually got a diesel heater mounted on the truck, and that does work quite well. I went camping last year for my birthday, and it was minus 15 when we went to bed at night. Yeah, Wyoming gets pretty daggone cold. And the diesel heater kept the tent at 55 degrees. It's pretty impressive. Now, the key with diesel heaters is you want to recirculate the air. And what I mean by that is when you've got your hot air pumping into your tent, you want to have another hose that's going to pull the hot air from your tent down to the heater. It will reheat that air back up and then put it back into the tent. So it's a closed loop system. It's exactly what a forced air system in your house, the exact same system. Your heater will actually be more efficient And actually you will be able to get a much hotter air coming out of your heater if you do that. Another thing that you want to be careful with is you don't want to have long runs of tubing, your ductwork. Now, let's face it, the ductwork that you get when you buy those little diesel heaters, it's 2 feet long. That's it. How in the heck are you supposed to get that up to your tent? You can't. So what we do to think out of the box is we go get dryer vent tube. It's usually aluminum, comes all spooled up, kind of like in a coil. That stuff works quite well, but the problem is because it's aluminum, it dissipates your heat quite rapidly, and you can actually get quite a bit of heat loss before it gets into your tent. So it's really important that if you do run a diesel heater, you have as short as possible going from the heater into the tent. Now, it doesn't matter quite as much coming from the tent back to the heater, but it's really important you keep that from the heater to the tent as short as possible, and you'll get also the best efficiency out of that heater that way. So those are my little tips on how to stay warm while you're sleeping. Oh yeah. Got my coffee, got my fire. Heck yeah, this is looking pretty nice. Now, I mentioned earlier about getting out of the wind, and this right here, an awning, it's probably one of the best ways to do it. Now, if you don't have an awning, that's okay. What I've done in the past is I've actually gone on the downwind side of a vehicle to set up my fire and set up my tent on the ground and stuff like that. And I've actually used the vehicle as my wind blocker. But the only problem with a vehicle is there's a great big gap from the ground to the bottom of your vehicle. If you're in a car, it's a whole lot better, but let's face it, we drive lifted trucks to go out and adventure and see this type of stuff. So it's not really going to work quite as well. So I invested myself in this awning here, and you can get them for pretty good deals these days. And you're thinking, well, John, what's that awning going to do? It's got no protection. All you got is shade and whatever falls down from the sky. And you know, you're absolutely right. But the beauty about having an awning is you can make walls for it. Now, there is some awnings out there that offer a complete wall kit, so you have a nice enclosed living space down here on the ground, and that'll also keep you out of the wind. Now, if you don't want to spend the money, I know this guy right here, it was $400 to get the complete walls and the floor just for that awning. I got lucky. I found one on Facebook. Good old marketplace. But if you're not so lucky finding one, that's okay, because you can actually get quite creative with tarps. Yep, you can actually put tarps on the sides, and you can zip tie them to the top, and then you can just put some weight at the bottom, or you can zip tie them down the legs and then over to the vehicle. And you can actually use tarps to give you that wall to get you out of the wind. Now, that's what we did on my birthday trip last year. Grant, he had his awning, and that's exactly what he did. He had an extra wall from, I think it was one of those party tents, conventional tents. I can't quite remember. But he didn't have the kit that you can buy. He improvised. And I tell you what, it worked absolutely amazing. So we had ourselves kind of we circled the wagons in a way. We had Grant's Jeep, and then we had John's trailer, and then I was back here blocking the wind from this side, and we had his awning out, and the wind was coming in from my vehicle side. So we put the wall up, and then we put the heater, the propane fire pit, underneath the awning, and it actually reflected the heat, the awning and that wall. We only had one wall. It reflected the heat so well that we actually found ourselves extremely comfortable. And I think that night we were around minus 12, minus 10. Improvise. Now, here's the cool thing. You could kind of do a setup like this with a regular tarp. You can go from the top of your vehicle down to the ground. You get a little smaller area to hang out in, but you can make a decent wind blocker like that. So that is the tricks that I've used in the past to get out of the wind and to make a nice, enjoyable area to sit around and relax in. So those are my little tips about winter camping. If you have any tips that you would like to share, please comment them down below. This is just kind of a little system that I've developed, and it's worked okay, but I'm sure there's probably a whole lot better stuff out there than what I do. I mean, heck, for you people that like to go down to Antarctica and, you know, Greenland and go adventuring over in those places, you got some big kahunas. But if you've got some great experience of winter camping, by all means, please comment down below and share that with others. Well, thanks guys for joining me on this episode of Overland Garage about camping in the cold. Until next time, we'll see you guys out on the trail.
Later on in the night, when the crowds have gone, we could talk under moonlight.